Welcome to another episode of Stories from the Edge of Life. We have a very special edition today, along with a very special guest, Jennifer Swanson. Jennifer, welcome. Please reintroduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jen Swanson. I am a longtime friend and volunteer with Palliative Care Network and Stories from the Edge of Life, and longtime marketing advocate and hospice and palliative care advocate. I'm so happy to be here again.
Thank you, Jen. And I'm Parag Bharadwaj. I'm a hospice and palliative medicine physician. So, Jen, it's been a year.
It's been a year. I can't believe it. It's already been that fast.
Yeah, it's been a year, and you got things rolling. You were the first person we interviewed, so thank you.
Absolutely.
Right. So this session is just like a 1 year touch base to see how things are going, and let's just have a dialogue about how the experience has been for us and where we might be going, the path we might be going down in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you mentioned, it's been a year. We've had wonderful stories from amazing people, some really great and very touching musical numbers. How has the experience been for you?
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's not easy being the interviewer because these are very sensitive uh, experiences that they have gone through, and I'm sure it's not very easy for them to talk about. It's not easy for me to listen through to them at times, because they're very intense. And it's interesting because sometimes, the experience is so intense that it takes a few hours to unwind after listening to what some of them have gone through and how they've overcome the challenges.
And have there been any surprises for you?
Yeah, I think that was a big surprise for me personally because I've been doing this for a while clinically, but each story gets to you, and the the other surprises have been, the sometimes what happens is that the true story actually comes out after the interview. uh, I think folks relive their experience, and while they might be willing to share only so much on camera, it sort of puts them in the zone, I guess, mentally of what they went through. And then there are some things they probably don't want to share on camera that they end up sharing with me afterwards, and which is a lot more intense than what is shared uh, during the interview. Um, and then the other thing that came as a surprise was actually, I thought we would be sharing these stories for a worldwide audience, uh, for their benefit, but it came as a surprise to me in terms of how much the interviewees have come back and said that it's been very therapeutic for them. As difficult as I'm sure it was for them to be interviewed and bear open their experiences, uh, they found it to be extremely therapeutic.
Yeah, I'm sure. I know it was a very emotional experience when I was interviewed for that first one. So I can imagine some of these stories have been very therapeutic. What have you learned over the last year, either from the interviews or from the process or both?
Yeah, so I think there's a common theme. I think there's a common theme that emerges out as you listen to these various interviews. There's a common denominator that every story has. Actually, common denominators is how I would put it, that all these stories have. And um, I don't want to tell what those are from my perspective because I think every individual will come to their own conclusion based on where they are in their life. Um, but yeah, it's been amazing. The one thing I do want to share that is a common element amongst all is the courage that these folks have to be interviewed and to share their experiences, and it's very human. If we, regardless of their backgrounds and what they may or may not believe, um, there are few common things that they all talk about.
Yeah, it's been, as a viewer, it's been a very sometimes emotional experience to listen to these stories, especially when you've got, repeat guests on, and to hear what they've gone through and their courage. It's very inspiring. Are there any takeaways for the listeners that you want to share?
Yeah, I think appreciating the courage that others have. And the other thing is, I think, we make assumptions quite often, but we don't know what the other person has gone through. In fact, I'll tell you, one of the individuals I was interviewing, it was probably one of the most intense interviews I experienced. But this individual made me laugh, right? So hard right before the interview. And I was like, this person is so kind, because I'd had a long day, and sometimes we interview at odd hours due to time differences and so forth. So uh, I was clearly exhausted, but she got me into the zone and the right perspective, and it was very interesting because she was actually helping me. And I think that's what it's all about. I think in the end, we all learn from each other's experiences and try to be better human beings.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think, especially what I've learned from working kind of with the field of hospice and palliative medicine, is it really brings in a very special kind of soul, whether it's the clinicians or those receiving care. There's a very common type of person, and their hearts are really beautiful, and that really shines through. So, what's next for Stories from the Edge of Life? Are there any exciting surprises coming?
Yeah, I think what we're going to try to do moving forward is to try to uh, expand the interviewee pool, because I think it's been mostly for the folks that we've interviewed have mostly been from the US, um, of course, from different cultural backgrounds. But I think we're going to expand to tapping folks from around the world and share their experiences, because it's a common thread, right? That's what we want to highlight, that no matter where you're from, uh, in the end, we're all the same, and experience things the same way.
And I think it's important too to remind folks that no experience is too small, right?
Right.
Everybody's human experience is what brings us together.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. Yeah. So while they all have common denominators, all the stories, each story is unique. So that's the dichotomy, right? Uh, to me, sometimes, like, if I look at it from a big picture, they're common threads to each one, but each one is a special story and is very unique in its own way.
Absolutely.
And these are, I mean, sometimes I feel awkward calling them stories, because these are experiences that they have lived. And I'm always looking for the better word to use, but that's a different story in itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Are there any parting thoughts or hopes that you have for this next year outside of trying to get a broader international audience?
Yeah, I think trying to also go a little bit upstream. I think we've spoken about situations that are too close to the edge of life, but perhaps pushing it upstream, and having some conversations about you know life in general from a clinical point of view, and how different folks look at things differently from different parts of the world. The one thing I'll tell you that came as a big refreshing surprise in terms of what we did was interviewing musicians. And the reason why we came up with that idea was pretty much in every interview, the interviewees were mentioning how much music had supported them. And although they might have had situations when they were very lonely, music was their best friend. they could always count on music. And so, as you are aware, we started interviewing musicians from around the world. They have been very generous in sharing their music. And some of them have actually gone through their own experiences with either themselves or family members uh, dealing with death or near death situations. So
Yeah,
I really want to acknowledge their contribution. And I think they're so creative, and they just bring a very different perspective to the channel.
absolutely. And I think, like storytelling, music is something that spans different cultures. We all have something that we hold on to in that area.
Absolutely. Right. And yeah, I do want to take this opportunity to thank you and all the various folks who have come forward to be interviewed and helped us along the way and guided us along the way. So it's been a great year, and we hope to continue having more memorable stories shared with all of you.
Absolutely. And to all of our viewers, if you would like to share a story, please reach out to us on social media. We'd love to have you.
Right. And the doors are always open.
Absolutely.
All
Thank you
right.
so much for your time today.
Thank you, Jen. And do you want to share any parting words in terms of what your experience has been listening to the stories? And I know you help us out in a lot of other ways, but yeah, any perspectives that you might want to
It's
share?
it's just been so inspiring, and hearing from different people. I mean, I've always felt very strongly about being an organ donor and giving as much as I can to others, but really consider organ donation. If you know you've got a friend that might be ill or down, check in on them. Just share your soul and be kind to others, because you never know what somebody's going through, even if they haven't shared it. And I think while I'm watching these interviews and tearing up, and I'm just so in awe of the compassion and endurance that some of these people have had. And it's just very, very important to hear.
Thanks. You put it very well. Thank you. All right. So I think we'll wind up.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to this next year.
Likewise. Thank you, Jennifer. And to our audience, thank you very much. And we will stay in touch virtually. Bye.